Have you ever walked past someone and had no idea they could change your entire world? Sarah Martinez never thought much about fate. At 32, standing behind the counter of Rosie's Diner in Durham, North Carolina, she'd learned that life was more about survival than destiny. Her apron was stained with ketchup from the lunch rush. Her feet ached in worn-out sneakers, and her mind was already calculating whether she could afford both groceries and her daughter's asthma medication this week. The answer, like most weeks, was no. Through the window, she could see the autumn leaves dancing down Main Street, golden and free. She envied them sometimes, their ability to just let go and drift wherever the wind took them. But Sarah couldn't let go. She had Emma, 7 years old with curious brown eyes and questions about everything. And she had Jake, barely 2, who just learned to say mama and said it approximately 400 times a day. They were her world. Her reason for the double shifts, the aching back, the nights when she cried into her pillow after they'd fallen asleep in the tiny 2-bedroom apartment above the laundromat on Maple Street. The divorce from Marcus had been final for 8 months now, but the pain still felt fresh. Not because she missed him, but because she'd trusted the wrong person, believed his promises. And now her kids were paying the price for her mistakes. "Sarah, honey, table 6 needs a refill," Rosie called from the kitchen, her raspy voice cutting through Sarah's thoughts. Sarah grabbed the coffee pot and painted on her smile, the one she'd perfected over 3 years of waitressing. The one that said "I'm fine" when she was barely holding it together. Table 6 was occupied by Mrs. Henderson, a regular who'd been coming to the diner since before Sarah was born. She knew everyone's story in this small town, which meant she definitely knew Sarah's. "How are those babies of yours?" Mrs. Henderson asked, her wrinkled hand patting Sarah's as she poured the coffee. "They're perfect," Sarah said, and that part wasn't a lie. Emma's doing great in 2nd grade, and Jake just started saying full sentences. What she didn't say was that Emma's teacher had pulled her aside last week, gently suggesting that maybe Emma could benefit from some new clothes. Kids were starting to notice she wore the same 3 outfits on rotation, or that Jake's daycare was threatening to drop him if she was late with payment again. The bell above the door chimed, and Sarah glanced up out of habit. A man walked in, tall, maybe late 30s, wearing jeans and a simple gray sweater that somehow looked expensive even though it was plain. He had dark hair with just a touch of silver at the temples, and when he looked around the diner, his eyes held a tiredness that Sarah recognized, the exhaustion of someone carrying weight no one else could see. "Sit anywhere you'd like," Sarah called out, her voice automatically cheerful. He chose the booth in the corner, the one by the window where the afternoon sun streamed in. Sarah gave him a minute to settle before heading over with a menu and a glass of water. "Welcome to Rosie's. Can I start you off with some coffee?" "Please," he said, and his voice was warm, genuine. "And maybe your recommendation? I'm new to Durham." Sarah felt something flutter in her chest. Not attraction, not exactly. More like recognition. Like looking at someone and sensing they understood what it meant to start over. "The meatloaf is honestly amazing," she said. "Rosie's been making it the same way for 40 years. And if you're really hungry, the apple pie is worth saving room for." "Sold," he smiled. "I'll take both." Over the next hour, as Sarah moved between tables, she noticed things about him. He didn't check his phone constantly like most people. He watched the street outside with a thoughtful expression. When his food came, he ate slowly, like he was actually tasting it instead of just refueling. And when she refilled his coffee, he looked her in the eye and said, "Thank you," like he really meant it. Such small things. But in a life where Sarah felt invisible most days, small things mattered. "Long day?" he asked during one of her passes by his table. Sarah laughed, surprised by the question. "Is it that obvious?" "Only because I know what one looks like," he said. "I'm Daniel, by the way." "Sarah. Nice to meet you, Sarah." Something about the way he said her name made it sound important, like she was someone worth noticing. He came back the next day. And the day after that? Always the same booth, always patient, always kind. On the 3rd day, Emma's school called during Sarah's shift. Her daughter was in the nurse's office, struggling to breathe. "Asthma attack!" Sarah's hands shook as she untied her apron. "Rosie, I have to go." "Go, go!" Rosie waved her off. "Family first." Sarah ran for the door, her vision blurring with panic, and nearly collided with Daniel as he was walking in. "Whoa, hey, you okay?" His hand steadied her shoulders. "My daughter, I have to..." The words wouldn't come out right. "Where do you need to go?" Daniel asked, his voice calm but urgent. "Lakewood Elementary, but I don't have my car today. It broke down, and I can't afford to fix it. And Sarah was babbling now, the stress of 3 months of holding everything together finally cracking her open. "Come on," Daniel said simply, guiding her toward a black SUV parked at the curb. "I'll drive you." Sarah should have hesitated, should have questioned why this stranger was offering to help. But all she could think about was Emma, her sweet baby girl who'd asked her this morning if they could afford to buy pumpkins for Halloween next month. They reached the school in 8 minutes. Daniel drove fast but steady, not asking questions, just focused on getting her there. Emma was sitting in the nurse's office, her inhaler in her small hand, her face tear-stained but breathing better. "Mama!" She launched herself into Sarah's arms. "I've got you, baby." "I've got you." Daniel waited in the hallway, giving them privacy. When they emerged 20 minutes later, Emma's hand tucked in Sarah's. He was still there. "This is my daughter, Emma," Sarah said softly. "Emma, this is Mr. She realized she didn't know his last name. "Daniel is fine." He smiled at Emma. "How are you feeling?" "Better," Emma said shyly. "Thank you for bringing my mom." "Anytime." He drove them home, to the shabby building on Maple Street that Sarah was usually embarrassed to show anyone. But there was no judgment in Daniel's eyes, only understanding. "Thank you," Sarah said as they got out. "I don't know what I would have done." "You would have figured it out," Daniel said. "You seem like someone who always does." Over the next 2 weeks, Daniel became a regular fixture at the diner. He started coming for breakfast too, and sometimes he'd stay through lunch, working on his laptop in that corner booth. He'd always tip generously, more than the meal cost actually, which made Sarah uncomfortable until Rosie told her to just accept kindness when it showed up. "There's something about him," Rosie said one evening as they closed up. "Can't put my finger on it." Sarah knew what she meant. Daniel had this quality, like he was used to being in charge, used to making big decisions, but was choosing to just be quiet and present. He asked about her kids, remembered their names, asked how Emma's asthma was doing. One rainy October afternoon, when the diner was nearly empty, Daniel looked up from his laptop as Sarah refilled his coffee. "Can I ask you something?" "Sure," Sarah said. "Why do you work so hard? I mean..." He paused, choosing his words carefully. "You're always here. Every shift. You never say no when Rosie asks you to stay late." Sarah's defenses went up instantly. "I have 2 kids to support." "I know. That's not what I meant." Daniel leaned back. "I just wonder if anyone ever tells you that you're doing an incredible job." Sarah's eyes stung. She turned away quickly, pretending to wipe down an already clean table. "Sorry," Daniel said quietly. "I didn't mean to overstep." "No, it's..." Sarah's voice cracked. "No one ever says that." That night, Sarah lay awake in bed, listening to Jake's soft snores from the crib next to her. Emma was asleep in the bedroom they shared, probably dreaming about the story they'd read together. Sarah thought about Daniel's question, about the life she was building from scraps and determination. She thought about how sometimes kindness came from unexpected places. The next morning, Daniel wasn't at the diner, or the next day. A week went by with no sign of him, and Sarah tried not to notice his absence, tried not to wonder if she'd said something wrong, or if he'd just moved on like everyone eventually did. Then, on a Thursday morning, he walked in with a man in an expensive suit. "Sarah!" Daniel called her over, his expression serious. "This is James Chen. He's a lawyer and I need to talk to you about something." Sarah's stomach dropped. Whatever this was, it couldn't be good. But what Daniel was about to reveal would shake the very foundation of everything Sarah thought she knew. Sarah's hands trembled as she set down the coffee pot. A lawyer. Daniel had brought a lawyer to her workplace. Her mind raced through possibilities. Had she done something wrong? Was this about Marcus, about the divorce, about custody? "Can we talk somewhere private?" Daniel asked gently, seeing the panic in her eyes. Rosie let them use the small office in the back, her curious eyes following them, but knowing better than to ask questions. Sarah sat in the worn chair across from Rosie's desk, while Daniel and James Chen stood. The lawyer looked uncomfortable in the cramped space, his tailored suit out of place among the stacked invoices and old calendars. "Sarah," Daniel began, running a hand through his hair, the first time she'd seen him look nervous. "I haven't been completely honest with you." Her heart hammered. "What do you mean?" "My full name is Daniel Westwood." He said it like she should recognize it. When she only looked confused, James Chen pulled out his phone and showed her a screen. There was Daniel, same face, same tired eyes, standing in front of a massive glass building, shaking hands with someone in a business suit. The headline read, Tech billionaire Daniel Westwood announces new innovation center in North Carolina. Sarah stared at the image, then at Daniel, then back at the image. That's your... The words wouldn't form. I'm the CEO of Westwood Technologies, Daniel said quietly. We develop software for healthcare systems. About 6 months ago, I decided to relocate our headquarters from Silicon Valley to the Research Triangle here in North Carolina. I've been in Durham trying to understand the community, trying to make sure we do this right. Sarah stood up abruptly, the chair scraping against the floor. Why didn't you tell me? Because when I walked into Rosie's diner that first day, you saw me as just a person. Not as a billionaire, not as someone you wanted something from. You saw me, Sarah. Do you know how rare that is? So you lied to me? Her voice was rising, months of frustration and exhaustion, suddenly finding a target. I didn't lie. I just didn't tell you everything. Daniel's voice remained calm. And I'm telling you now because I want to help you, and I need you to understand that I have the means to do it. I don't need your charity, Sarah said, even as a voice in her head screamed that yes, she absolutely did need help. It's not charity, James Chen interjected smoothly. Mr. Westwood would like to offer you a position with Westwood Technologies, executive assistant to the CEO. The salary is $120,000 a year, plus full health benefits, including comprehensive coverage for your daughter's asthma treatment. The number hit Sarah like a physical blow. $120,000. She made $18,000 a year at the diner. Why? She whispered. Daniel stepped closer. Because over the past few weeks, I've watched you manage this entire diner while Rosie steps out. Handle difficult customers with grace. Remember everyone's orders without writing them down. And somehow still have patience and kindness left over for your kids at the end of a 12-hour shift. Those are exactly the skills I need. Someone organized, capable, and real. I don't have a college degree, Sarah said. I don't have experience in whatever it is you do. You have something better. You have emotional intelligence, work ethic, and integrity. I can teach you the rest. Sarah looked at James Chen. Is this legal? Can he just offer someone a job like this? Completely legal, the lawyer assured her. I've drawn up a standard employment contract. You can take it home, have someone review it. There's no pressure to decide right now, but there was pressure. The pressure of Jake's daycare bill. The pressure of Emma's next doctor's appointment. The pressure of the eviction notice Sarah had hidden in her purse, giving her 30 days to come up with 3 months of back rent. I need to think about it, Sarah said, her voice steadier than she felt. Of course, Daniel said. Take all the time you need. That night, Sarah couldn't sleep. She read the contract at her tiny kitchen table while Emma and Jake slept, the words blurring together. Healthcare coverage, retirement benefits, paid vacation, things she'd never had in her entire working life. Emma padded out of the bedroom, rubbing her eyes. Mama, why are you awake? Sarah pulled her daughter onto her lap, breathing in the strawberry scent of her shampoo. Just thinking, baby. About what? About whether sometimes it's okay to let someone help you? Emma, wise beyond her 7 years, said, Mrs. Henderson says accepting help isn't the same as being weak. She says sometimes the strongest thing you can do is say yes. Sarah kissed the top of her daughter's head, tears sliding down her cheeks. The next morning, Sarah walked into Rosie's diner and handed in her notice. Rosie, who'd known Sarah since she was Emma's age, pulled her into a fierce hug. About damn time something good happened to you, Rosie said. Her own eyes wet, Sarah started at Westwood Technologies the following Monday. The office building was sleek and modern, all glass and steel, with a view of downtown Durham that took her breath away. Her office, she had an office, was on the executive floor, right next to Daniel's. The first week was overwhelming. Sarah had to learn new software, understand the company's projects, manage Daniel's schedule, coordinate with department heads. But Daniel was patient, and Sarah discovered that he'd been right. She could do this. Her years of managing chaos at the diner had prepared her more than she'd realized. She started physical therapy for Jake, who they discovered had been struggling with a developmental delay no one had caught because Sarah couldn't afford regular checkups. She got Emma into an after-school program where her daughter thrived, making friends and joining the art club she'd always wanted to try. For the first time in years, Sarah could breathe, but it wasn't just about the money. Daniel became her friend. Real friend, not boss and employee. They'd have coffee in the morning and talk about everything from business strategy to their favorite books. He told her about his divorce 5 years ago, how he'd thrown himself into work to avoid dealing with the pain. She told him about Marcus, about feeling like she'd failed her kids by choosing the wrong person to build a life with. "You didn't fail them," Daniel said one afternoon as they worked late on a presentation. "You're the reason they're thriving now. You never gave up on them, not for a second." 3 months into her new job, on a December evening when snow was starting to fall outside the office windows, Daniel knocked on Sarah's office door. "Can we talk?" Sarah looked up from her computer. "Of course." "What's up?" Daniel sat down across from her, and she noticed his hands were shaking slightly. "I have something to tell you," he said, "and I need you to hear me out before you say anything." Sarah's heart started pounding. "Okay." "The reason I came to Durham wasn't just for the business. I've been running from something, from the emptiness of my life in California, from relationships that were all about my money, from feeling like I'd built this empire but lost myself in the process." He paused, meeting her eyes. "And then I met you, and you saw me, just me, when I was nobody special in that diner. You let me drive you to your daughter's school without suspicion. You've become one of my closest friends, and I need you to know—" The office door burst open. "Daniel!" A woman stood in the doorway, tall, blonde, perfectly polished in a designer dress. She looked at Sarah with cold assessment, then back at Daniel. "We need to talk," the woman said. Now, Daniel's face had gone pale. "Victoria, what are you doing here?" "I'm here to bring you home," Victoria said. "To remind you of what you're throwing away for—" She glanced at Sarah with disdain. "Whatever this is." Sarah stood up slowly. "I should give you privacy." "No," Daniel said firmly. "Sarah, stay. Victoria, you need to leave." "Leave? We're engaged, Daniel." "Or did you forget that when you ran away to play small-town hero?" The word engaged hit Sarah like ice water, and suddenly, everything she thought she knew about Daniel, about her new life, was about to change forever. Sarah felt the room tilt. Engaged. Daniel was engaged to this woman, this perfectly polished stranger who was looking at her like she was an obstacle to be removed. "We're not engaged anymore," Daniel said, his voice hard in a way Sarah had never heard. "We haven't been for over a year, Victoria." "You know that," Victoria laughed, but there was no humor in it. "A year ago you said you needed space. That's not the same as ending things. I said it was over. I've said it a dozen times." Daniel stood, putting himself slightly between Victoria and Sarah. "How did you even get up here?" "I told security I was your fiancé. They let me right up." Victoria's smile was razor sharp. "Now, are we going to discuss this privately or in front of your little assistant?" The dismissive way she said assistant made Sarah's face burn. She grabbed her purse. "I'll go." "Daniel, we can talk tomorrow." "Sarah, wait." Daniel reached for her arm, but Sarah was already moving toward the door. She took the stairs instead of the elevator, 14 flights down, her heels clicking against concrete as tears blurred her vision. How could she have been so stupid? Of course, Daniel had a life she knew nothing about. Of course, there were complications. Men like him didn't just wander into small-town diners and befriend single mothers out of the goodness of their hearts. Sarah made it to her car, a used Honda Daniel had helped her finance. She remembered with a bitter laugh before she broke down completely. Her phone buzzed. "Daniel, please let me explain. Victoria is my past, not my present. She's not part of this." Sarah didn't respond. She drove home to her new apartment, 2 bedrooms in a safe neighborhood, with a playground Emma loved, and paid the babysitter. She held both her kids that night, Jake on one side, Emma on the other, and tried to remember that even if everything with Daniel fell apart, she still had this. She'd still changed her life. She'd still saved enough money to stand on her own feet. But God, it hurt. The next morning, Sarah called in sick for the first time since she'd started at Westwood Technologies. She needed time to think, to figure out if she could keep working there, or if it would be too painful now. Her phone rang at 9 a.m. "Daniel," she let it go to voicemail. It rang again at 9:30 and 10. By noon, someone was knocking on her door. Sarah checked the peephole. Daniel was standing there, holding 2 coffee cups and looking exhausted. "I know you're home," he called through the door. "I can see your car." "Please, Sarah, just give me 5 minutes." Emma tugged on Sarah's sleeve. "Who's Mr. Daniel fighting with, Mama?" "Nobody, baby." "Go play with your brother for a minute, okay?" Sarah opened the door but didn't invite Daniel in. "What do you want?" "To tell you the truth, all of it." Daniel's eyes were bloodshot, like he hadn't slept. "Victoria and I were together for 3 years. She wanted to marry me, or rather, she wanted to marry my money and the lifestyle it provided. I was lonely and stupid enough to think that was love. About 18 months ago, I finally saw it for what it was. I ended things. She said we were engaged because she never accepted that it was over. She's been calling, showing up, trying to convince me that I was making a mistake. That's part of why I came to Durham. To get away from her, from that whole world. Daniel set the coffee cups down on the hallway floor and ran his hands through his hair. I should have told you about her. I should have been completely honest from the start. But I was so damn grateful to have someone in my life who saw me as just Daniel. I didn't want to ruin it. Sarah crossed her arms. And what exactly did you think I saw you as? Because from where I'm standing, I feel pretty foolish. The poor waitress who needed rescuing. No, Daniel said sharply. God, Sarah, no. You're the strongest person I know. You didn't need rescuing. You needed a fair shot, which is what everyone deserves and what our society doesn't always provide. I offered you a job because you earned it, because you're brilliant at it. And He paused, his voice dropping. I kept coming back to that diner because for the first time in a decade, I felt like a real human being instead of a walking bank account. What do you want from me, Daniel? Sarah asked tiredly. I want you to know that I ended things with Victoria, permanently, legally. James Chen has already served her with a cease and desist if she tries to contact me or anyone in my life again. Daniel met her eyes. And I want you to know that over these past few months, you've become the most important person in my world. You and Emma and Jake. I want to be part of your lives, if you'll let me. Sarah's heart was pounding. In what way? However you want. Friend, colleague, or... Daniel's voice shook slightly. Or something more. If you feel it too. The thing that scared Victoria so much, she flew across the country to confront me. I have 2 kids, Sarah said. I have baggage. I have an ex-husband who might show up again someday. I have a beautiful, complicated, real life, Daniel finished. That's what I want, Sarah, not perfection. Just real. Emma appeared beside Sarah, clutching her stuffed rabbit. She studied Daniel with serious eyes, then looked up at her mother. Is Mr. Daniel going to make you cry again, Mama? Daniel crouched down to Emma's level. I really hope not. In fact, I'd like to do the opposite if your mom will give me another chance. Do you like pumpkins? Emma asked suspiciously. Daniel smiled. I love pumpkins. We're having pumpkin pie for dessert tonight. You can come if you promise not to make Mama sad. Sarah felt something break open in her chest, the last wall she'd been holding up against hope. Okay, she whispered. Okay, you can stay. Over the next months, Sarah learned what it meant to be truly seen by someone. Daniel was patient with her fears, gentle with her kids, and never tried to replace Marcus or be something he wasn't. He showed up for Emma's school plays and Jake's first haircut. He taught Sarah about business and finance, treating her like an equal partner in every decision. On a spring evening, 6 months after Victoria's dramatic appearance, Daniel took Sarah to the construction site of Westwood Technology's new innovation center. The building was nearly complete, all glass and possibility. I want to show you something, he said, leading her to a plaque that would be mounted in the main lobby. The Westwood Center for Innovation and Opportunity, dedicated to the belief that talent is everywhere, but opportunity is not. May this building stand as a commitment to changing that. Below the main text, in smaller letters, inspired by Sarah Martinez, who taught me that strength comes in many forms. Sarah's eyes filled with tears. Daniel, you changed my life, he said simply. You showed me what matters. And if you'll have me, if Emma and Jake will have me, I'd like to spend the rest of my life making sure you know how extraordinary you are. He pulled out a small box, and Sarah's breath caught. This isn't about money or obligation or anything, but how I feel about you. About us. Will you marry me? Sarah looked at this man who'd walked into a small-town diner and seen her, really seen her, when she was invisible to everyone else. She thought about the journey from that first day, from desperation to hope, from just surviving to actually living. Yes, she said. Yes. 1,000 times yes. They were married that summer in a small ceremony at Rosie's diner, because that's where their story began. Emma was the flower girl, Jake was the ring bearer, and Rosie cried through the entire thing. Sarah Martinez, now Sarah Westwood, stood in front of the Innovation Center a year later, watching families from all over Durham enter for the free after-school programs they'd established. Kids who reminded her of Emma and Jake, who just needed someone to believe in them. Daniel came up behind her, wrapping his arms around her waist. "Happy?" "So happy," Sarah whispered. "Sometimes I still can't believe this is real." "Believe it," Daniel said. "You earned every bit of this." And maybe that was the real transformation, not the money or the title or even the love story. It was Sarah finally understanding that she'd always been enough, always been worthy, always been strong. She just needed the right person to remind her of it. Life has a way of surprising us when we least expect it. Sometimes the person who changes everything walks through the door disguised as an ordinary stranger. Sometimes strength isn't about never falling apart. It's about getting back up every single time. And sometimes, the greatest love stories begin with nothing more than kindness and a cup of coffee. If this story touched your heart, don't forget to subscribe to our channel and hit that notification bell so you never miss another inspiring story. Share this with someone who needs to hear that their breakthrough might be just around the corner. Because everyone deserves to know that they're enough, exactly as they are.